So today we're going to continue talking about our fractional exponents with some more advanced examples. So here we have 3 times the square root of x times 2 times x to the power of negative 3 over 2. The first thing I'm going to do is rewrite this square root of x as a fractional exponent. Remember, if you're taking the square root, it's x to the power of 1 over 2. That's being multiplied by 2 times x to the negative 3 over 2. So with the coefficients, I can just multiply them together. 3 times 2 is 6. And I'm just going to leave that over here for right now. Now with the exponents, we're multiplying x to the 1/2 times x to the negative 3 over 2. And when we're multiplying, we are adding the exponents together. 1/2 plus negative 3 over 2 is the same thing as 1/2 minus 3 over 2. So we're subtracting the numerators and leaving the denominator alone. That gives me x to the power of negative 2 over 2, and negative 2 over 2 will simplify to x to the power of negative 1. So I'm going to take my coefficients multiplied together, 6, and multiply that by x to the negative first power, and that is your final answer. So here we have to do the same thing. Let's write everything in terms of fractional exponents first. 4y to the power of negative 6 over 5 times 2y. Remember, this is y to the first, so 1 is in my numerator, and 4 is the root, so that's your denominator. And again, 4 times 2, we're going to multiply that, and 8 will be the coefficient of my final answer. And next we'll deal with combining the fractional exponents. We have negative 6 over 5 plus 1 over 4 because I'm multiplying. So here I don't have a common denominator, and I need to make one. 5 and 4 both go into 20, so I'm going to multiply the right side by 5 over 5 and the left side by 4 over 4. This will give you negative 24 over 20 plus 5 over 20, which is equivalent to negative 19 over 20. And that's the exponent of my y. So your final answer, 8y to the power of negative 19 over 20. Our next example involves division, but I'm still going to rewrite all of my exponents in fraction form first. The cube root of b is equal to b to the power of 1/3. And this is b to the power of 2 over 1. So last time we multiplied our coefficients, this time we're dividing our coefficients. 6 divided by 3 will be 2, and that's going to be the coefficient of the final answer. Now, because we're dividing, we also have to subtract our exponents instead of adding them. So I need to figure out what my exponent will be when subtracting 2 from 1/3. Common denominators, I'm going to make it 3. So we don't need to change anything on the left, but I'll multiply the right side by 3 over 3. 1/3 minus 6 over 3 is equal to negative 5 over 3. So that's the exponent for the final answer, which should be 2 times b to the negative 5/3. Okay, so in this example, I have terms inside the parentheses with an exponent outside of the parentheses. Inside the parentheses is 9 times y to the power of 2 over 3. Since my exponent of y is 2, that's in the numerator, and the cube root, that's the denominator, so it's y to the 2/3 power. This is to the power of 1/2. So remember, we have to Distribute this exponent to both terms. 9 to the power of 1/2 times y to the 2/3 to the power of 1/2. Well, when we're talking about the coefficients, we can rewrite this in radical form. Anything to the power of 1/2 is the square root of that term. So it's actually going to be the square root of 9, which gives me 3. When we have exponents inside the parentheses and outside the parentheses, we need to multiply them. So 2/3 times 1/2, multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom, and that can both be divided by 2, which gives you 1/3. Alternatively, you could realize that when you're multiplying fractions, you can simplify diagonally. So 1 times 1 would give me 1, and 3 times 1 is 3. This just means you simplified before you got to your final answer instead of afterwards. Either way, my final answer will be 3 times y to the power of 1/3. So here we have the fifth root of x to the power of 2/3 times x to the power of -1. So let's rewrite this. We have x to the 2/3 power times x to the -1/1 power to the power of 1/5, because that's equivalent to taking the fifth root. So first I'll deal with the inside of my parentheses, and we need to add 2/3 and -1. So to get the common denominator, I'll multiply my right side by 3/3, and you get 2/3 minus 3/3, or -1/3. That means the inside of my parentheses is x to the power of -1/3. And I still have to take that to the 1/5 power. So that means, since 1 is on the inside and 1 is on the outside, we are multiplying. X to the power of -1/3 times +1/5 is x to the power of -1/15. Okay. So here it's the square root of a cubed over a to the 4/3. I will rewrite this as a to the power of 3/1 divided by a to the power of 4/3, all to the power of 1/2, because that's equal to taking the square root. So first, to simplify inside the parentheses, we have to subtract since we're dividing. So over here, I'm just going to work out my fraction subtraction. Okay. In order to make both denominators 3, I'll multiply the left side by 3/3, which equals 9/3 minus 4/3, or 5/3. So a to the power of 5/3 to the power of 1/2. Multiply your exponents, and you get a to the power of 5/6. Our final example is in parentheses 8 times the 4th root of z cubed to the power of 1/3, which is equivalent to 8 times z to the power of 3/4 to the 1/3. Take this exponent to both terms. 8 to the 1/3 times z to the 3/4 to the power of 1/3. So here, once again, we're multiplying. So we can either say z to the 3/12 and then divide both of those numbers by 3, or simplify those 3's and simply get to the final answer for my exponent of z. Now here, 1/3 is equivalent to the cube root. And the cube root of 8 is 2. So your final answer will be 2 times z to the 1/4 power. Remember to reach out for help if you're struggling on your homework. Best of luck and see you soon.